The House will be in order. The first order of business is roll call. The clerk will unlock the machines and the members will record their presence. Representative Anderst is here. Representative Gideus is here.
Okay, we're good. We're good.
The clerk will lock the roll and record the roll. The roll call shows 69 present, 1 absent and excused. A quorum being present, the House is ready for business. The second order of business is prayer by the chaplain, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Today, the prayer will be led by House Pastor Tom Doherty, and the pledge will be led by House Page Juritzi Enriquez. Will the guests in the gallery please rise?
I have a quote today by Pat Williams, the author of a book called Extreme Focus. Many bright, energetic people are thwarted by the overabundance of interests and choices. You have to decide what rabbit you're going to choose, then focus on it with all your might. Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for the right you have given us to make choices in our lives. Lord, it doesn't take us long to realize that our choices play a big role in who we are. I pray, dear Lord, that each one of us would make choices that would breathe fresh air into the lives of those we come in contact with. I pray, dear Lord, that you would be with every state worker in their various capacities and give them the insight they need as they share with one another. Lord, also be with us, the less fortunate, who struggle to make it through each day. I pray we could encourage them in their lives and help them to recognize that hope abounds. I pray we would never be callous to the needs of others, but to live a life that is full of mercy. Thank you, O Lord, for these people who have met today to direct this state. Guide all their ways. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The House will now advance to the third order of business, approval of the journal. The House is at the third order.
February 11th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration report that we have read and approved the House Journal of the 33rd Legislative Day and recommend same be adopted as corrected. Moved by Wills, seconded by Burgoyne.
The members will need to take their seat for the vote. You've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries and the report is adopted. The House will now advance to the fourth order of business, consideration of messages from the Governor and the Senate. The House is at the fourth order.
February 8th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, I return herewith enrolled House Bill 4, which has been signed by the President. Novak, Secretary of the Senate.
House Bill 4 will be referred to Judiciary Rules and Administration for delivery to the Governor.
February 8th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, I transmit herewith Senate Bills 1024, 1032, 1010, 1043, and 1044, which have passed the Senate. Novak, Secretary of the Senate.
Senate Bills 1024, 1032, 1010, 1043, and Senate Bill 1044 will be filed for first reading.
February 8th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, I return herewith House Bills 5 and 16, which have passed the Senate. Novak, Secretary of the Senate.
House Bills 5 and 16 will be referred to Judiciary Rules and Administration for enrolling. The House will now advance to the fifth order of business, report of standing committees. The House is at the fifth order.
February 11th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration report that we have printed House Bills 120, 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, 128, 129, 130, 131, and 132. Wills, Chairman.
House Bills 120 and 121 will be referred to State Affairs Committee. House Bills 122 and 123 will be filed for second reading. House Bills 124, 125, 126 will be referred to Judiciary Rules and Administration. House Bill 127 will be referred to Business. House Bill 128, 129, 130, 131, and 132 will be referred to Resources and Conservation Committee.
We have.
Good lady from District 29.
Point of personal privilege.
The lady has the floor.
Thank you. I would hope you will join with the good representatives from District 29 and 28 in welcoming Reverend Janie Gebhardt, who is a Pocatello-Chubbuck School District trustee. Welcome.
Clerk may read.
We have one more.
Oh. Good lady from District 28.
Mr. Speaker, point of personal privilege.
The lady has the floor.
Thank you. I would also like to send a welcome out to my youngest son, Nathan, who is in the gallery.
Good gentleman from District 32.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to point of personal privilege.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like you to join, if you would, Representative Lurcher and myself as we introduce the Soda Springs School Board. Linda Lee, Jim Smith, and Jonathan Balls in the gallery. They're particularly interested in what we do. As you may recall, Soda Springs School District has 49% of their budget from personal property tax.
Welcome to the gallery. Good gentleman from District 14.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and also a point of personal privilege.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you. I'd like to also welcome my parents who are joining us here today in the gallery, and it's wonderful to have them here, and hope that we can all extend them a warm welcome.
I think we're good.
Clerk may read.
February 11th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration report that we have transmitted enrolled House Bill 2 and House Bill 3 to the Governor at 11:30 a.m. as of this date, February 8th, 2013. Will's Chairman. February 8th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Revenue and Taxation report that we have had under consideration House Bill 88 and Senate Bill 1009 and recommend that they do pass. Collins, Chairman.
House Bill 88 and Senate Bill 1009 will be filed for second reading. Without objection, the House will now advance to the 8th order of business, introduction, first reading, and reference of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the 8th order.
From the Office of the Speaker, dear Chairman Palmer, pursuant to Rule 24, I am designating the Transportation and Defense Committee a privileged committee on Tuesday, February 12, 2013, for the purpose of hearing additional proposed legislation. Sincerely, Scott Bedke, Speaker of the House. From the Office of the Speaker, dear Chairman Wood, pursuant to House Rule 24, I am designating the Health and Welfare Committee as a privileged committee for the remainder of the 2013 legislative sessions. Sincerely, Scott Bedke, Speaker of the House. In the House of Representatives, House Bill number 133, by Local Government Committee, an act relating to county recorder fees, amending Section 313205 Idaho Code to revise fees that may be charged by a county recorder to a party procuring his service and to make technical corrections. House Bill number 134 by Local Government Committee, an act relating to public funds, amending Chapter 1, Title 57 Idaho Code by the addition of new Section 57-127B to authorize treasurers for public hospital districts and treasurers for county hospitals to invest funds generated from operational revenues in certain investments, and to provide that such authorization shall not be construed to enlarge or expand powers of treasurers for public hospital districts or county hospitals to invest funds generated through and valorem taxes, assessments, or levies outside the scope of investments enumerated in specified law. House Bill number 135 by Local Government Committee, an act relating to revenue allocation areas, amending Section 502904 Idaho Code to provide an election for the creation of revenue allocation areas and declaring an emergency. House Bill number 136 by Local Government Committee relating to local land use planning, amending Section 676503 Idaho Code to provide that exercising powers under the Local Land Use Planning Act shall be discretionary, to provide that mandatory provisions of specified law shall only apply to cities and counties that elect to exercise the powers conferred by the Land Use Planning Act as evidenced by the passage of a resolution or ordinance, and to provide that any changes to a comprehensive law, plan, resolution, or ordinance proposed to be enforced countywide shall first, prior to to enforcement be submitted for approval to the voters for whom such regulations are intended to be imposed, amending Section 676508 to provide that cities and counties that elect to exercise the powers conferred by the Land Use Planning Act shall establish a property rights council to provide for membership of such council and to provide for duties of such council, and declaring an emergency. House Bill number 137 by Local Government Committee, an act relating to urban renewal law, amending Section 50-2007 Idaho Code to remove language relating to certain urban renewal agency powers and to make technical corrections. House Bill number 138 by Local Government Committee, an act relating to plats and vacations, amending Section 50-1310 Idaho Code to establish additional provisions relating to acceptable methods of copying a plat and to make technical corrections, and declaring an emergency. House Bill number 139 by Revenue and Taxation Committee, an act relating to income taxation, amending Section 63-3026A Idaho Code to provide for sourcing formula to Idaho for partnership income with exceptions, declaring an emergency and providing retroactive application. House Bill number 140 by Revenue and Taxation Committee, an act relating to property taxation, amending Section 63-602A Idaho Code to provide that property on a reservation belonging to a federally recognized Indian tribe is exempt from property taxation, to revise terminology and to make a technical correction. House Bill number 141 by Revenue and Taxation Committee, an act relating to exemptions from property taxation, amending Chapter 6, Title 63 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Section 63-60200 Idaho Code to provide that wells drilled for the production of oil, gas, or hydrocarbon condensate are exempt from property taxation, declaring an emergency and providing retroactive application.
House Bills 133, 134, 135, 136, 137, 138, 139, 140, and House Bill 141 will be referred to Judiciary Rules and Administration for printing.
In the Senate, Senate Bill number 1024 by Agricultural Affairs Committee, an act relating to sheep and goats, amending Section 25-127 Idaho Code to revise provisions relating to the membership of the Idaho Sheep and Goat Health Board and to make technical corrections, and amending Section 25-131 to provide that the state of Idaho may audit the funds of the board at any time. Senate Bill number 1032 by Judiciary and Rules Committee, an act relating to public assistance, amending Section 56-227 Idaho Code to remove archaic verbiage, to remove unnecessary verbiage, to clarify verbiage, to provide that conduct relating to certain fraudulent acts and penalties shall not be construed to be more restrictive than federal or state provisions regarding the transfer of property for public assistance, and to provide that conduct relating to specified fraudulent acts and penalties shall not apply to any person who communicates information or renders advice to another regarding federal or state provisions regarding the transfer of property for public assistance. Senate Bill number 1010 by Health and Welfare Committee, an act relating to medical assistance services, amending Section 56-255 Idaho Code to revise provisions of behavioral health services for Medicaid participants. Senate Bill number 1043 by Transportation Committee, an act relating to motor vehicle driver's licenses and identification cards, amending Section 49-315 Idaho Code to provide that a licensee who is a veteran may request that his or her status as such be designated on his or her driver's license, and to establish provisions governing such designation, amending Section 2444 Idaho Code to provide that a person who is a veteran may request that his or her status as such be designated on an identification card, and to establish provisions governing such designation and providing an effective date. Senate Bill number 1044 by Transportation Committee, an act relating to motorcycles, amending Section 49-114 Idaho Code to revise the definition of motorcycle and to make technical corrections, and declaring an emergency.
Senate Bill 1024 will be referred to Agriculture Affairs Committee, Senate Bill 1032 to Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, Senate Bill 1010 to the Health and Welfare Committee, and Senate Bills 1043 and 1044 to the Transportation and Defense Committee. Without objection, the House will now advance to the 10th order of business, second reading of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the 10th order. Good gentleman from District 24.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to request consent that House Bill 91, which is on the second reading calendar, be returned to committee. We've discovered a couple of corrections that need to be made there. If I may explain the bill.
Yeah, the gentleman has the floor. May he explain why he's making a unanimous consent request to pull a bill back to his committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill, and if you look at it, this relates specifically to election workers who work on polls during Election Day. This last year, a number of election workers, approximately 10, worked on Election Day mostly in Ada County, but apparently elsewhere around the state as well, and then filed for unemployment claim saying, well, their work had started on that day and it had ended on that day, so therefore they were unemployed. The bill would correct this matter by adding unemployed poll workers to the list of already identified exemptions. In looking at the bill, after it had been approved in the committee, it was noted that there is an area that is partly regulated in this by federal law under federal election law, so we need to bring the bill back to the committee and make those tweaks and then bring it forward.
Okay, you've all heard the unanimous consent request to return House Bill number
91
back to the Commerce and Human Resource Committee. Is there an objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Clerk may read.
In the House of Representatives, House Bill 115 by Appropriations Committee regarding appropriations deficiency warrants. House Bill 55 by State Affairs Committee regarding Telephone Solicitation Act. House Bill 54 by State Affairs Committee regarding Health Insurance Exchange. House Bill 74 by Business Committee regarding Architectural Examiners. House Bill 48 by Resources and Conservation Committee regarding injection wells. House Bill 49 by Resources and Conservation Committee regarding injection wells.
House Bills 115, 55, 54, 74, 48, and House Bill 49 will be filed for third reading. The House will now advance to the 11th order of business, third reading of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the 11th order.
Mr. Speaker.
Good lady from District 11.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for a point of personal privilege.
The good lady has the floor.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, the House, please join the lady from 11 and I in welcoming Superintendent Andy Grover from our Melba School District. We are very fortunate to have Andy in our district. He's very progressive, and we're glad to have him here today.
Welcome to the gallery. The House will have under consideration House Bill number 10. The gentleman from District 10.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to dispense with further reading of House Bill 10.
You've all heard the request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the body, the purpose of this bill is to amend the licensing provisions of the Idaho Residential Mortgage Practices Act to promote uniformity and efficient licensing processes in the evaluation of a licensed applicant and allowing the director to reinstate licenses for a period of 60 days following license expiration for failure to renew. The bill provides a license exemption for individuals who originate mortgages on behalf of federal, state, or local government housing agencies. The bill also amends the Act to remove language inconsistent with HUD's interpretation of Federal SAFE Act relating to an exclusion from the definition of mortgage loan originator and makes it a prohibited practice for a person to violate license-related testing or education procedures. The bill authorizes the director to subpoena records related to unlicensed activity by any person and also clarifies licensing exemptions for Idaho attorneys and accountants. The industry was having problems with the department issuing denial letters for incomplete applications and then being penalized in other states for having a denial on their record. So essentially, the practitioners would change states, and then when the departments had to issue denial letters, that would show up on their record, therefore making it inefficient for them to get licensed in other states. And then also the 60-day reinstatement period, this is something that the mortgage industry wanted because it will save licenses, because once that December 31st time period hits, some licensees would if they was already past that time period, would then not want to renew because they didn't want to go through the hassle of going through the application process again. Therefore, the 60-day time frame will give them ample time to do that for that reinstatement period. I also have 4 letters in support of the passage of this bill. They come from the Idaho Association of Mortgage Brokers, the Idaho Mortgage Lenders Association, a member of the Idaho Department of Finance Mortgage Advisory Board, and the Vice President of Mortgage Operations from the Idaho First Bank. I would submit to the body that the committee was informed that these changes were negotiated by the industry over the course of the last year, and this bill came out of committee with a unanimous do-pass recommendation. For this, I would ask for your yes vote today. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from District 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the good gentleman yield to a few questions?
Will the gentleman from District 10 yield to a question? We'll field them one at a time.
The gentleman yields, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman
Thank you,
yields.
Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman. Looking at page 12 of the bill, it appears to allow the director to issue subpoenas and collect information from those who are not licensed by the department. In other words, I understand when you are issuing subpoenas and collecting information to monitor those whom you license, but this appears to give the department unfettered authority to reach out beyond its department and those that are licensed to issue subpoenas to anybody. I have some concerns about that. Was that discussed in the committee?
Gentleman from 10.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, good gentleman from 15. Yes, it was discussed in the committee, and in fact, it was a concern of the committee as well. We had asked the gentleman who was presenting the bill for further clarification on that. The information that we received in committee was, frankly, that if somebody is doing business without a license, that the department needed that subpoena authority to reach out to that individual who was not licensed to make sure that they were not doing anything that was illegal under Idaho code. There was also I guess we have a letter that was sent to the chairman of the business committee bearing that same question. And so if it's okay, maybe I'll just read a portion of the letter for the good gentleman from District 15. Is that okay, Mr. Speaker?
Without objection.
Okay. This basically says...
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Basically says, Chairman Henderson, on January 15th, at the print hearing of RS 21636, before the House Business Committee, questions were raised by some committee members as to the constitutionality of a proposed provision clarifying the Department's subpoena authority related to investigations of unlicensed mortgage brokering and lending in Idaho. And this was what they had to say about that. The Department's authority to investigate unlicensed mortgage activity has been coupled with subpoena authority for many years. This is true in virtually all areas of the Department's assigned regulatory oversight. The provision as at issue in House Bill 10 is intended to clarify and arguably limit existing investigatory and subpoena authority set forth at Idaho Code 26-31204, subsection 2. Our purpose in proposing the amendment is to also give the unmistakable notice of the Department's investigative authority to those that engage in unlicensed mortgage activity in Idaho. There's another section of this too, because also I had that as a question for the committee. I believe they are also complying with the Federal SAFE Act when it comes to the subpoena language in the bill.
Thank you for that.
Is there further debate?
I have a further question, Mr. Speaker.
Will the gentleman from District 10 yield to another question?
The gentleman from District 10
gentleman
yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman. On page 15 of the bill, there's an exemption from licensure for those originating loans who are working for the government. Previously, there was a much narrower exemption there dealing with those who are originating loans for manufactured housing and also for HUD-related purposes, which I assume had to do with some federal requirements. The current exemption that's proposed broadly expands that to say anyone that is originating a license or a mortgage, if they're working for the government, is exempt from licensure. And for example, as an attorney, if I'm working for the government, that doesn't exempt me from having an attorney's license to practice. I still have to go through that process, and there's an important reason for doing that, to check on your background and all of that. Was that discussed in the committee about why this broad exemption is suddenly being put in the bill?
Gentleman from 10.
Thank you, good gentleman from District 15. Yes, it was, in fact, discussed. The reason that we got for that was because it was with the intent of uniformity with the Federal SAFE Act and with the HUD language that they put forth. And another reason too was that it's not in the same commercial context as you would find with the commercial application for the requirements, and so therefore we're not intended to be of the same consequence.
Thank you.
Further debate.
Yes, thank you, good gentleman, to debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think there's a lot of good things in this bill, but I think it's trying to do too much. Sometimes we get these lengthy bills and we cram a lot of stuff in here, and a few important things get caught up in the mix. I am concerned about the expanded subpoena authority of a department that can reach out beyond their licensing authority. And I understand the Department of Finance is engaged in some important reviews as people come in and make loans and do things. However, if there's, normally you would go to the prosecutor, you would go to the appropriate agency that the Attorney General or the prosecutor to conduct subpoena authority or investigations, go to the police. When the letter says arguably limit, I'm a little concerned about that. The letter that the good gentleman read said that this arguably limits the subpoena authority. Well, that's not a very strong statement to me. I would much rather see this in a separate bill and debated further. Secondly, when we exempt a broad class of folks in the government, and hopefully we're not originating too many loans, but we've got agencies that originate loans. And the reason we have licensure for people that do that is to protect the public. Well, who more should we protect than the taxpayers? So it seems to me that if we're broadening this exemption beyond just the HUD requirements, that's too far. There's another little issue in there. It's not a make it or break it, but on page 9, there's also a provision removing the requirement that the license has to be posted in the office. Well, I think it's a good idea if somebody's interested in knowing whether the office is licensed or whether they are truly licensed. Again, that's not a big deal one way or the other, but it's just another little thing here on top of the other two issues that I have concerns about. So all in all, I think there's a lot of good things in this bill. But again, sometimes we try to do too much in these bills that we lose sight of some important issues. And so I'm going to vote no on this, and I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Is there further debate?
Mr. Speaker,
the gentleman from District 12.
Just comments several to our good member from gentleman from District 15. Subpoena primarily is for subpoena the records of employees who have done incorrect activities. Just to make that a point that's in the bill, that gives them the authorization to subpoena records from employees primarily. The second issue, as far as licensing, that was primarily for the Idaho Housing and Finance. All federal state employees are licensed through banks, credit unions, so they already have their license. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further debate? The gentleman from District 17.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With
17.
With the gentleman from 17. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate it.
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
To debate the bill.
The gentleman has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, we had extensive discussions in the committee on this issue of the subpoena, and I would call the body's attention to line 25 and 26, which state if the director has a reasonable basis to believe that an unlicensed person is engaging in activities for which a license is required under this part. This is a very important tool for any agency such as this, because there's no problem with the agency regulating the conduct of someone who has obeyed the law and come into the agency and gotten a license. For example, a doctor who goes in and gets a license, or an attorney that gets the license, or a realtor that gets a license. But what about somebody who is is unlicensed and is engaging in activities for which a license is required? And that's what the department wants to do, is somebody who is engaging in the activities for which a license is required. I would point out that earlier in the Residential Mortgage Brokers Act, there are a number of exemptions. For example, one of the exemptions is someone who sells property for engages in the self-financing of 5 pieces of property in a year. Those people would not fit within this, what I consider to be more narrow ability to use the subpoena power. Now, many of us in the committee were very concerned that all this said was, well, you can issue a subpoena. And that's why we received the letter that the good representative has referred to. And that letter pointed out that if someone believed that they were being improperly investigated, they can resist the subpoena. They can say, we're not going to produce this evidence. And if they do that, then the director has a choice. The director of finance can go to district court and have a judge decide whether the subpoena is properly issued, and whether the person, whether there's a reasonable basis to believe that an unlicensed person is engaging in activities for which a license is required. In addition, I believe the author of the letter noted that the standard is reasonable basis, not probable cause. And reasonable basis would probably be a higher standard than the probable cause, which is often used as a basis to issue a subpoena. So after we got those particular concerns clarified, I think many members felt very comfortable with this particular provision, and I would urge everyone to give a green light. Thank you.
Gentleman from District 2.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman from District 15 stand for question?
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, gentleman yields.
The gentleman from District 15
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
yields.
Good gentleman, you mentioned that the only thing that the department would have to do is go to the police or go to a DA or the whatever agency would be able to issue a subpoena. The testimony at the committee was that the department would have to sue or bring a lawsuit before they would have the power to subpoena. And I made my judgment based on that representation. Is it in fact true that the department would not have to bring suit in order to get a subpoena and could go to the district attorney or another police agency to get the subpoena from the non-licensed individual? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from 15.
Mr. Speaker, good gentleman from 2. I think it could happen either way.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from 23.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman from 10 yield to a question?
Will the gentleman from District 10 yield to a question?
Gentleman yields.
Gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentleman from 10, if in fact this bill is proposed for public safety in the finance area and those types of things, why isn't there an emergency clause on it?
Gentleman from 10.
Good gentleman from District 23. I don't have an answer for you at this time.
Is there further debate?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If in fact this bill is proposed to do the things that I just mentioned, I'm curious to why there isn't an emergency clause on it to put it into effect as soon as it's signed by the gentleman on the second floor instead of waiting till July 1st. That's a matter of concern to me. That tells me this, that what they're trying to change is not as needed as what they're talking about, or they would have said, hey, this has got to be done right away. And I'm a little bit concerned about that, and I don't know how the good speaker will call this debate, but we've already got debate against it, so there's going to be more debate, but I am concerned about that, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further debate? A good lady from District 5.
Mr. Speaker, just as a point of information, as a realtor, I like some of the provisions of this bill. If you have ever worked with a non-licensed mortgage broker and seen the havoc that they can wreak upon a buyer, it's a very sad situation. I've only dealt with this in one occasion over the 12 years that I've been a realtor, but it affected 4 families because their loan was the first in the line of several, and with an unlicensed mortgager who took their money for an appraisal and then disappeared on a summer job. And it was a nightmare, and it took us 3 months to clean up. So I support that provision of this bill.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from District 3.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen of the body. As chairman of the Business Committee that had adequate and a lengthy debate on this bill, I wish to report to you that there were no negative votes in the committee. It was a voice vote, but every vote was an aye. There were no nay votes. And these issues that have been discussed were thoroughly debated and discussed during the RS hearing and during the bill hearing within the committee. I really welcome the kind of debate we've had here this morning. It's constructive. It helps everyone understand the concepts within proposed legislation. And on the basis of the debate I've heard this morning and what happened in the committee, I'd strongly support an affirmative yes vote on this bill. Thank you very much.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the good gentleman from District 10 is recognized to close debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In closing, I just want to say that this was a long, drawn-out effort between the Department of Finance and all the stakeholders. And while everything was not met 100% on either side, I think that for the majority, that the industry wanted these changes, and I think it's important that this body recognize that. And with that, I'd ask for your green light on the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill number 10 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their vote. Has every member voted?
Gideus?
Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine, record the roll. The roll call shows 56 aye, 14 nay, 0 absent and excused. House Bill number 10 has passed the House as a correction to title. Hearing none, House Bill number 10 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have...
Mr. Speaker.
Good lady from District 5.
I have a personal privilege, please.
The good lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen. I see Mr. Frank Lutzow in the audience up above, and he's a great volunteer for healthcare issues in Moscow and here with the Cancer Society today. And please join me and Representative Agidius in welcoming him.
The House will now have under consideration House Bill 29.
Mr. Speaker?
Good lady from District 33.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for unanimous consent that we dispense with further reading of this bill.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady from District 33 is recognized to open debate.
This bill would add 3 new district judge positions to residents in Canyon, Ada, and Jefferson counties beginning October 1st of 2013. Now, I have the privilege of bringing this forward, and I'm very fortunate to be able to do so because this will help Bonneville County. The district judge that will be seated in Jefferson County would reduce the caseload that is now happening within Bonneville County. And I can tell you that with the growth in our area, and speaking with our judges, that is very much needed. Canyon County it had 60% of growth since 1996, and their caseload increased by about 86%. And Ada County has had 41% of growth since 1998, and their caseload has increased by 44%. In Jefferson County, this would be the first such seat. Jefferson County's growth was at 49% since 1993. Bonneville County's growth rate is at 35%, with the caseload increase of 77%. So as you can see, the judges have been able to handle the caseloads by giving their own time and staying over and doing extra caseloads. So this is definitely something that is needed. And at this time, I'd like to yield to my co-sponsor, the good gentleman from District 10.
Will the gentleman from District 10 yield?
The gentleman yields.
The gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, excuse me, the good lady from 33 has explained why the need for this. Just like to make a couple of comments about the fiscal impact on this bill. Fiscal impact for fiscal year 14 is $504,900. When we go forward with that, because that is only partial year, the fiscal impact in future years is $673,200. But I want you to know that Idaho Code provides that the counties are required to provide suitable and adequate facilities, as well as staff, supplies, and other expenses of the district court judges. So this is not just strictly a state-funded issue. It is something that is done on a basis, whether it's a cooperative basis between the counties as well as the state. All 3 counties have indicated by letter that they have the facilities and they do want these judges in there. And I bring this up because a few years ago, when there was a request for a district court, I asked the question of the court, do the counties have the facilities? And I was told yes, and I found out later they did not. So the courts now are going to the counties and finding out if they do, in fact, number one, need these judges and if they want the judges. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I would ask your support of this so that the third branch of government could adequately do the services they're provided to do.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 29 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 70 ayes, 0 nay. House Bill 29 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 29 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 76. The gentleman from District 12.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that we dispense with further reading of House Bill 76.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good gentleman from District 12 was recognized to open debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good members of the body, this section of code was inserted in 2010 as a reaction to the number of homes that were being foreclosed on. This section implements a mechanism for homes that have been inadvertently sold in a trustee's sale to be returned to a status quo position. House Bill 76 simply clarifies that when a rescission of a trustee's deed is recorded because of a judicial stay, it puts all affected parties in a status quo position as of the time of the trustee's sale instead of the date of the trustee's deed recording. This date can be several days or even weeks later. This bill received a due pass recommendation from the Business Committee, and I would appreciate your green light.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 76 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Representative Hansi. Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the roll and record the vote. The roll call shows 70 ayes, 0 nay. House Bill 76 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 76 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 72. The gentleman from District 21.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to dispense with further reading of H 72.
You've all heard the request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen. First, I would like to thank the Revenue and Taxation Committee for unanimously supporting this bill, reporting it out of committee with the do pass recommendation. I would also like to thank all those who, some in the committee and some on the floor here, who have agreed to co-sponsor this bill. Idaho Code Section 633029A currently offers an Idaho income tax credit for voluntary donations to various components of the state's education infrastructure and that are tax exempt under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. In order to take advantage of these credits, eligible entities are required to form separately governed, nonprofit IRS tax-exempt foundations. For some of these organizations, the cost of creating the foundation, as well as the annual state and federal compliance requirements, can make it difficult or impossible to create a foundation, or when started, the operational costs can eat up a significant portion of their annual revenue. Additionally, these small foundations often rely on volunteers, and many times these are not paid staff, permanent accountants, or bookkeepers. And over the years, many of these small organizations have lost their tax-exempt status through failure to comply with the IRS forms. Under IRS regulation, there is another alternative. It is to have a charitable cause form a dedicated account within an umbrella organization foundation known as a community foundation. The community foundation then handles the numerous costly and time-consuming management responsibilities, such as the investment plans, IRS compliance, or settling estate and gift bequests. While at the same time, this community foundation requires the funds within the account to be used exclusively for the purposes and needs of the designated school, library, or museum. Idaho has only one statewide community foundation. It is the Idaho Community Foundation. It was founded 25 years ago to provide the benefits of a community foundation in Idaho. No similar organization exists statewide. It is also important to note that the Idaho Community Foundation is accredited by the Community Foundation's National Standards Board and thus certified to be in compliance with the national standards for statewide community foundations. Under the changes that this law, H-72, if qualified 501c3 entities choose to create a dedicated fund within the Idaho Community Foundation, it can receive the help that they need with all aspects requiring the creation and operation of the foundation. It should also be noted that this bill does not change current law regarding contributions to the Idaho Community Foundation. This is not a new tax credit for any entity. Only those tax credit provisions currently in the law will continue to qualify 501c3 foundations. Also, this bill does not change current law regarding how a school can qualify for a tax credit. Again, this bill will not require nonprofits to create a fund within Idaho Community Foundation. It simply provides an option to create a dedicated fund. I have visited with representatives of several school districts and have received no negative comments regarding this bill. In fact, More than one district has indicated it would have saved them time and money had the law been changed before they formed their foundation, and they look forward to visiting with the Idaho Community Foundation regarding creating a dedicated fund. Several other organizations, including the Idaho Association of Commerce and Industry and food producers, have reviewed this bill and indicated their support. Also, testimony before the Revenue and Taxation Committee indicated this change in the law would facilitate the process of corporate giving to these foundations, as well as have a positive impact on Idaho's small rural communities. Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen, I believe this would benefit Idaho schools and ask this body to support the unanimous recommendation of the Revenue and Taxation Committee and give a green light to H72. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, then the question before the House is, shall House Bill 72 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the roll and the members will cast their vote. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 70 ayes, 0 nay. House Bill 72 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 72 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 17. And the chair recognizes the good lady from District 17.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for ceasing of further reading of House Bill 17.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is the 21st century, and with the advent of new technology and everything else coming our way, the world of pharmacy is changing. And so, the Idaho Pharmacy Act, the working document that the world of pharmacy works within here in Idaho, is in need of changing too. Our Idaho Pharmacy Act was for many, many years just fine, confining its coverage pretty much to the practice of pharmacy within the borders of our state. But now, over very recent years, the board has worked to allow coverage for rural hospitals that may have only one pharmacist who unfortunately cannot fill 24 hours a day because he or she actually needs sleep. So, 2 hospitals were allowed to receive coverage by a pharmacist located in a Utah hospital to conduct a prospective drug review, which is looking at interactions, dosing, allergies, disease states, and such electronically for a small rural hospital in Idaho prior to the administration of such a drug, as opposed to the current practice, which has always been to review the medication that was dispensed the following day. It was a good safety measure that the board found provided superior public safety measures as opposed to its absence. With the hard work over a long period of time, stakeholders have worked with the Board of Pharmacy to revise the existing Idaho Pharmacy Act. So today we have legislation that all stakeholders are in agreement with. It blends in such practice that in 2009 was described as the telepharmacy across state lines that we spoke of above. Plus it also brings in what we have separately found in code concerning mail order pharmacies as well. This legislation not only streamlines code, but also brings our state in good position to keep our people of Idaho safe against threats such as that experienced nationally by the New England Compounded Center, or NEC, tragedy in which 40 Americans died and hundreds more were infected by improperly compounded sterile injectable medication. This bill will more tightly regulate non-resident drug outlets and pharmacists that practice pharmacy into our state of Idaho. As a note, I will mention that some people have wondered if this bill would limit meds from coming in from outside of this country into our state. This legislation is silent on this because the Board of Pharmacy has no control over medications coming in from out of the U.S., nor has it the ability to license or discipline such illegal out-of-country mailing in of medications from out of the country. That is strictly a federal issue because it's prohibited at the federal level. With that, I ask you to join me with a yes vote.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 17 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the roll, and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the roll and record the vote. The roll call shows 70 aye, 0 nay. House Bill 17 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 17 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 43. Good lady from District 31.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to dispense with further reading of House Bill 43.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady is recognized to open debate.
Mr. Speaker, House Bill 43 is legislation for the Department of Commerce. It's designed to clarify the political affiliation of the membership of the Idaho Economic Advisory Council, and it also includes language to confirm that the Advisory Council members serve at the pleasure of the governor. This council is one of 3 advisory councils under Commerce that is charged with advising the director and staff on economic development initiatives. The council also serves the important function of reviewing and making recommendations on grant awards for several of the department's grant programs, including the Community Development Block Grant and Rural Community Block Grant programs. Current statute indicates that membership shall be divided between political parties. This was rather vague and in need of clarification to ensure that the department was in compliance with statute in making future appointments. For that, I stand for questions.
Is there further debate?
Thank you.
Hearing none, the debate is closed. That question is, shall House Bill 43 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their vote. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 70 aye, 0 nay. House Bill 43 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 43 will be transmitted to the Senate. The gentleman from District 14.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the remaining bills on the third reading calendar hold their place one legislative day.
You've all heard the request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, so ordered. The House, without objection, the House will advance to the 15th order of business, announcements. Are there announcements? The gentleman from District 22.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good ladies and gentlemen. Just a reminder that we are having a listening session on education at 4 o'clock today down in the Senate hearing room. And also, some of you may have seen the large trucks parked out on the road out there. Those are the trucks with the 129,000 pounds. And I would like to congratulate Representative Palmer. He's finally got a vehicle parked there that nobody has to pay for the parking meters.
Are there further announcements or rebuttals? Clerk may read.
Following are the Standing Committee meeting announcements for this afternoon. Education Committee will meet this afternoon at 4 p.m., West Wing, Room 2, DeMordaunt, Chairman. Business Committee will meet this afternoon at 1:30, East Wing, Room 41, Henderson, Chairman. Commerce and Human Resources Committee will meet this afternoon at 1:30, East Wing, Room 5, Hartgen, Chairman. Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee will meet this afternoon at 1:30, East Wing, Room 42, Wills, Chairman. And Resources and Conservation Committee will meet this afternoon at 1:30, East Wing, Room 40, Denny, Chairman. For tomorrow morning, Tuesday, February 12th, Health and Welfare Committee will not meet, Wood, Chairman. Revenue and Taxation Committee will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., East Wing, Room 42, Collins, Chairman. And State Affairs Committee will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., East Wing, Room 40, Lurcher, Chairman.
The House will now advance to the 16th order of business, adjournment. The House is at the 16th order. Good gentleman from District 14.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn until the hour of 10:30 a.m., Tuesday, February 12, 2013.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
You've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the House will stand adjourned until the hour of 10:30 a.m., Tuesday, February 12, 2013.
Twice as